Welcome back. I hope you had a good weekend. We've all talked in Niagara about governance, making decisions. We have come to a point in our history where there is a lot of dysfunctional processes going on. I thought it'd be interesting today to bring in a local person who's designed an idea to help this region. And I want him to talk about making decisions and our boards of directors in Niagara. Jeff Sinclair and his wife started something called Meetings on the Bus. What is that, Jeff?
Meetings on the Bus is a citizen-led movement that the main purpose originally was to support the new regional transit system. When we first heard about it in September of 2011 and when the new system came into effect, and there wasn't a lot of support for it. Government was already talking about the fact that it wasn't going to work, it was going to shut down. So we decided to, as citizens, we could get out and support this because we saw value in it. And then that has also led to the meetings that we have on the bus are all about socially relevant issues in Niagara. And we've had a fair amount of turnout for that. A variety of different people come out and talk about different issues. So that's what that's about.
And as I understand it, Jeff, there's a bigger philosophy behind this, beyond supporting regional transit. And that has to do with this idea of engaging more people in the participatory process.
Yes. I think democracy that we have is somewhat limited by the lack of participation of citizens. A representative democracy is basically our elected officials making the decisions. And it's as good as the representation that happens from those officials. And I think if you look at the people that are representing all of us in Niagara on city councils, etc., you'll see that they are all come from a very similar background, a very similar demographic, and very similar ideology. And I think I'd like to see that this changes, that it's much more representative of the population at large.
And just to be clear, I think we can say this, they tend to be male, they tend to be white, they tend to be Christian, they tend to be well-educated.
Yes.
They tend to be people who can take time off work to go to meetings.
Yeah, and they tend to be people who are already recognized as leaders and that aren't from marginalized groups. That's basically it. There's a large group of people who have been marginalized in Niagara, I think, and I don't think their voice is really being heard.
Should we hear those voices?
Certainly. I think the democratic process is based on disagreement, not agreement, and I think that we need to create better dialogue, more authentic dialogue. We need to get down to the bedrock of the issues that face Niagara, and I think the best way to do this is through having a diverse set of voices coming together to discuss these issues. Because if you don't, then we have, well, in business we talk about groupthink. And I do think that we have that problem in our government, that one or two voices, even along party lines, we have, three major parties, and so we have three voices, and that's definitely not enough.
So but the elected people will say, I was elected to office. They have given me the authority to make decisions for them.
Right. But when you look, how many people with disabilities ran for office? How many, marginalized groups have run for office? And so if they don't run, then there's an inherent flaw in that system. And that's why it's not representative.
And when we look at the current Republican nomination process in the United States, 4 white, wealthy men, we're just talking more about the same.
Yeah, it's the same.
So when you look around Niagara and you look at the power brokers of the region and the marginalized people, what can be done to bring the two groups together? I take it we're not calling either group the wrong group?
No, and I think that's very important. One of the core values of Meetings on the Bus is to celebrate what we have in Niagara. And we do have a lot of really good things in Niagara. The reports that have been done, like the Living in Niagara report, have come up with a lot of very positive feedback from people that live here in terms of the parks that we have. There's just so much here. But at the same time, I do think that we need to address these issues in a positive way.
So how do you take addressing recognizing the positive assets and translate that into action?
Right. And I think the key for that is for citizens to become active. And there's 2 ways you can do this. The first is by celebrating people who are active and are having a positive impact in the community. And so the way you would do that is basically spread the word. So if I see somebody that lives on my street who I know is active in some way, who is supporting a cause that I believe in, then tell people, tweet about it, put it up on your Facebook, let people know, talk about it. And that way we can get away from focusing on the negative and start focusing on the positive. And that's important because it's a way to role model new behaviors. And then the second thing to do is to become active yourself by finding an issue that you care about, that you're passionate about, and get involved in supporting that issue to make Niagara a better place.
Your first point, I think of all of the government leaders in Niagara, they will agree entirely. We have to look at what's right, especially incumbents running into an election again. Mm-hmm. They think anyone who thinks the other way is destructive. Now we've got to find that balance between this Pollyannish notion that isn't it all wonderful what we've done in our government, because we have real hurt in this region.
Right. I think too, part of that is, we talk as citizens, we talk a lot about changing the system, but one of the other things that we need to do is change ourselves. And it does go back to the fact that if we've elected these politicians in, then we have elected them. And so they do have a legitimate claim to the power that they're given. So one of the things that does concern me, though, is seeing increasing voter apathy. And to me, that's a critical sign that the people that we could be voting in are not representative of our needs. And so I think that we do need to find a way. I don't have that answer, unfortunately. But I do think we need to find a way to make the process much more inclusive.
Do you see any generation differences, Jeff? Older people, younger people, and how they engage?
No, not really. In meetings on the bus we've had youth come out, we've had retirees come out, and there's I think active is active. And no matter, it's not a matter of age or demographic that way. I think that there are people who have found it within themselves to become active in the community. And it creates a certain type of person. They tend to listen well. They tend to be a little more level-headed. They like to create dialogue, and they like to hear different voices. And I think that's the key thing.
They like to talk, and they like to learn ideas.
Yes.
We live in an era where we have two extremes in local governance. We've got people who say, I hate paying taxes, mm-hmm. and people who say, the government is corrupt, is not paying enough.
Right.
Where does your philosophy fall into that?
Well, I guess I'm pretty pragmatic when I look at taxes. And, if you look at the example of the Scandinavian countries, they pay exorbitant amounts of taxes, but corruption is almost non-existent in their government. They get almost free education, free health. It's very efficiently run, and their happiness rating in those countries is quite high. And there's also a high level of activism. We have some differences in North America in terms of the way we behave. There's just a lot of differences there. But I do think that if run correctly, that taxes shouldn't be seen as a bad thing. That they can be well used. Mm-hmm. It's not to look at it as a black and white issue, I think, is way oversimplifying it.
Mm-hmm. Have you found in some of your travels that some people who want to be participatory really aren't?
Yeah, well, what we've noticed is that people don't know they can participate. They don't know they can be active citizens. And when we explain to them that, well, no, you don't. The role that you play in our society is not simply to vote someone in and then sit back and watch TV. That you can get out and make change yourself. And we've had people, tears come to their eyes when they make that revelation that they can get out and they can actually create change. And those are the people that we're finding are becoming very active.
Jeff, thanks for coming on. Very good. So send an email. Love to get your ideas and comments, and I'll see you soon.